Stephen Eagles, Airbnb Consultant, great friend of mine. We've chatted before, but we're going to chat again. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm currently in Split in Croatia. Just trying to find that second home that exists somewhere in Europe where you get more favorable temperatures. Been to the whole Portugal scene where you are, and just trying to find where that next place might be. Traveling around, building business.
Last
That's
time I see
kind of
you,
my
you kind
life
of
at
sneaked
the
off in the middle
moment.
of the night, and you said you were going to Albufeira, and that's it. The next time I hear from you, you're in Thailand. Yeah,
Yeah,
so you're
yeah,
currently in
yeah.
Croatia, but you've been on a bit of an adventure to get to Croatia. Because when did you leave Algarve?
Algarve.
Mm,
I think that was like the
January,
back end of last year, wasn't it?
was it?
Maybe around, yeah, somewhere around October, November,
Was it?
I believe. And then went back to Liverpool, then booked flights to Thailand. Went to Thailand for 2 months from January, February.
Well, don't, let's not
Felt
just
like it
gloss
was
over
not meant.
Thailand. Tell us about Thailand, because is that the first time you've been to Thailand?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah. So
it was. I remember chatting
that
to you
was
when you
a
first went, and it was like a little bit of a dream experience at the beginning, wasn't it? And you were loving it, and you were sending these, great jealousy videos of you on the beach in a beach hut bar, and just generally having a wonderful time. But it all kind of went
yeah.
a little bit south, didn't it?
It did go south. It did. It did. Um, so yeah, it was all going well. I was finding my feet, working online, eating in restaurants 3 times a day, all the rest of it because, money knows no bounds over there. It's brilliant. And then started to get a couple of bites from mosquitoes,
Bill Gates
which,
mosquitoes, really.
yeah, 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 probably. But whatever. And then before an hour, a week later, I was just sitting on the beach one day in like 30-degree heat, sitting back, enjoying everything there is to enjoy. And then just started getting super freezing cold chills, like it was a really ice cold day or something, and I'm sitting in scorching heat. So I knew something was definitely not right. Um, and and then that turned into just what became like a really bad flu, which turned into a lot of really nice things to talk about, like vomiting and diarrhea and all of that good stuff for like 2 days straight, every 2 hours on cue. So I knew like there was something more serious at play. And in a local pharmacy, there was a little ad in the window that was saying, "Have you considered dengue fever?" And here are the list of symptoms. Now, of course, I seem to have all of the symptoms in this list, but having said that, when you Google, like you've got something wrong with you and you Google symptoms and it's like, have you got all of these? And they kind of just cover everything, and it's like, well, yeah, of course. So I was a little bit skeptical, thought, no, I won't have that. So anyway, I went to hospital, paying extortionate fees because I'm the smart kind of guy that goes traveling without insurance, thinking nothing will ever happen to me, which it of course did. And the blood test results come back, and it turns out that I did have dengue fever. Now at the time I didn't know much about it. And everything that you read online is always very like, the most scary things that happen that you can sort of think of.
You dodged COVID and ended up with dengue fever, and you were telling me when you were sick that you were in like, have you ever heard of the Bangkok Hilton? Have you ever heard of that? I think it was a book or a TV series, and the Bangkok Hilton is where foreigners get imprisoned when they get caught doing things in Thailand they shouldn't be doing, and
Sounds sounds
they
sounds very familiar.
yeah,
Sounds
they get
very
sent like
familiar.
to the bowels of Thai dungeons, and they end up spending 15 years there. But that when you were describing to me the hospital that you were staying in, it reminded me of Bangkok Hilton. It was a bit rough, wasn't it, by the sounds of it?
Yeah, extremely. So yeah, I was like I said, I was violently vomiting like every 2 hours for about five days plus. And I had to go to a hospital that I could afford because I didn't have insurance, and because they put the prices sky high because they know people are insured. So for people without insurance, you've got to go to like the local hospital. I didn't get onto it at first, but I started looking around, reading some of the signs that were in like broken English, and And I was just on a ward with absolute crazy people, just screaming out things at like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. People with like handcuffs to the beds and things like this. Um, maybe every 5 minutes you there's someone like, "Bleh," like violently vomiting. Just it seemed like everyone was vomiting.
Was this a
And
dengue
then I'm
fever
lying in bed
ward?
trying not.
Was it a dengue fever ward? Is
No,
everyone
no.
on there? But or don't you know what
It
was up with them?
it was just, yeah, I don't know what was up with them. It was like, people who were in really serious conditions to people who were a bit cuckoo. And then people like me who were also a bit cuckoo, but less severe illness. And so, yeah, with the dengue fever, there's nothing you can do about it other than just wait it out. And just some crazy symptoms you get from it, like bleeding gums, um, nosebleeds, because all your blood starts to thin and things of that nature. You break out in a full body rash about 7 days in, um, all of these things. So I just think they must have sensed my British blood, these mosquitoes, and thought, "Ooh, that's a little bit exotic."
You were a bit ginger before you decided to give your head a shave, so it's the ginger isn't it, that attracts the mosquitoes. I've got a mate who's like that, and you'd always, if you go anywhere tropical, you want to try and bring a mate with you who's got red hair, because they are just they're the red flag for the mosquitoes. They don't go near you. They go, okay, we're going after the ginger. Yeah. So.
That was my problem, and I can't believe you just called me ginger.
So it was, but you also happened to
we made it out
in this hospital, which was a little bit rough. You were also having to pay for the privilege of being there, weren't you? And it wasn't cheap.
Yeah,
$2.5 grand a week or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and then it got to the point where like everything bad that could possibly happen was happening. Like I went to pay for my hospital bills, or as I was checking in, half dying, and in quotation marks, being a little bit dramatic, but some people take it quite seriously. And then the bank machine, the only bank card that I had out in Thailand, swallowed my card as I'm trying to pay for them to even let me on the ward, after I'd just been, waiting to get on there for like the last, I don't know, sitting with the head of local Thai people who've got no money, and everyone's like coughing, sneezing, spluttering, all trying to get a place in this room. I finally get me place, and then it swallows me bank card. Yeah, it's just like every bit of bad luck that could happen was happening. So it started by having this really high, whoa, I'm in Thailand, living this digital nomad life. Everything's great. So then just sort of one issue after another in terms of health that was like just random things that I've never had in my life were attacking me. And so I was like, if I was looking at it from like a spiritual level, it was like something was telling me, get out of here. So I went on to Vietnam. I was just looking at flights thinking, okay, where's the next best place?
I know, I'll go from one jungle to the other.
Yeah. I wasn't prepared to come back to the UK in the way the weather situation was. I was like, no, I'm not retreating. I'm not backing down. So Vietnam was next. It was really favorable in terms of prices and everything else, much more favorable. And it was one of the best decisions I made. It was like it had a really large digital nomad community of people all around the world who go there purely to work online, make the most of your money going further, but being in a place with like beautiful beaches, and met some of the greatest people there, and my downturn turned back into an upturn.
Good.
And has now become a place that I know, every December through April. I think that's the place I'm going to be positioning myself.
Well, you go to Vietnam, you go back there, no problems there. I mean, it's like, because I remember, when you first arrived in Thailand, it's all fun and games, wasn't it? You're loving it. This is the place I want to live. And I remember like speaking to you when you were like,
don't say too much now. Don't say too much.
When you were at your lowest ebb, and we were like trying to help to get you out of there. And I was like, well, so what are you going to do once you get out of hospital? You're going to go back to, where you were staying? You went, no, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out. It was a bit like Apocalypse Now, where Martin Shaw had been into the depths of the underworld in the jungle, and, come out the other side a different man. But I'm glad you survived the dengue fever. It was touch and go for a while, whether you did. And, I'm glad you were in Vietnam. But you've moved back to Europe, and you sent me a lovely video of where you were, and I went, oh, that looks surprisingly half civilized. And I said, so where are you now, Stephen? And he said, Albania. Why did you find Albania? ChatGPT sent me to Albania. You didn't
Hey,
really
it
know
gives me all
much
the great
about.
advice, you know.
You didn't really know much about Albania, did you? Or even like the Albanian mafia. That was all new to you. But tell us about your short little time in Albania.
Yeah, I think what I learned from the whole Albania experience was that I should talk to you more often and run my ideas through somebody that has more I don't know, more understanding of culture and geography, because it's definitely not my strong points. If there's anything non-Airbnb related, it's just like nothing sinks in, you know. So I was looking for what can be my Thailand of Europe, somewhere where your money goes further. It's got better weather in regards to the other aspects of Europe. And so ChatGPT was telling me that Albania, and it's recently had some great press in like the Times saying it's the Maldives of Europe, you know, the
Wow.
secret hidden gem, this, that, and the other. So I booked a flight to Greece and then got the boat over to Albania. And it was in the daytime when I got there, it was all looking great and really nice, etc. And then the nighttime sort of come into play. And I noticed a real change in the energy. The kind of people that were walking around were like big, tall, strong, moody looking guys wearing, you know, all this designer clother with all of these, I don't know, all of this attitude and ego. And I was like, especially just coming from Thailand and Vietnam of like peace, love, and positivity, it was like alarmingly strong. I was like, and intimidating as well. And I go to all kinds of places. I'm not never bothered about safety. Um, but it was alarming that it was there was much more going on. You know, a lot of gangsters, a lot of wannabe gangsters, and therefore just really bad attitudes. And I thought that's not the energy I want to be around. And I thought it'll only take so much longer before I'm staring at someone for a second too long before, you know, shit hits the fan. So
But that's the thing with Eastern Europe. It's a bit of a culture shock. If you're from Western Europe, is Eastern European men are generally um, much less. They don't smile much, off the bat, and there
yeah,
is like
yeah,
an aggressive look to them. But once you get to realise that they're not being aggressive towards you or intimidating, that's just kind of the way they are. Right? And once you get to know them,
yeah,
they're friendly and everything. But I think it's the further south you get of Eastern Europe. So if you start with like Hungary, they're not as snarly, but the further south you get, the more towards like Albania, they start getting really, really snarly. And yeah, I went to Montenegro. I went to Montenegro 5 years ago, maybe more, and it was the first time I'd been to Eastern Europe, and that was the first thing that struck me when I got off the plane, and was you know, being amongst all these Eastern European men and all, like, I'm going, is he snarling at me? Is he snarling at me? Does he want to fight? You realise that's just the way they are. They do that to each other, and they don't mean anything by it.
yeah,
I think it might be something to do with growing up in a communist country. It might give you that permanent scowl and permanent frown. But I think once you get past that, I had a wonderful time with them. They're very generous, very funny. I had a good sense of humour once you've had a few drinks with them. But you've now
mm,
gone probably to the one place in Eastern Europe that I'd really, really love to visit, which is Croatia. And you've made your way up the Dalmatian coast. Tell us about Croatia and where that fits into your whole international adventure that you've been on.
yeah. It's a difficult one really because I also like describe myself as like the worst possible traveler. You know, because people go traveling. I'm constantly meeting people who are like they've all done the same route that I've done. We went through uh, from Albania through Montenegro, then through the many cities in Croatia. Um, but I'm not the kind of person that comes here to seek out all of the landmarks and all of the main attractions because I'm mostly focused on building my business online. It's just I'm looking for just where are the nice coffee shops, where's the gym, where's my accommodation, and then it's just that on repeat. But in general, started in Dubrovnik, which was really nice, certainly really expensive as well. Um, and obviously, there's a lot of Game of Thrones fanatics who come out here, looking for all of the filming spots that it was recorded. So visually, really beautiful. Then worked my way up to Split, which is more of the same, very similar, but yeah, it seems like it's got a really cool vibe. And I'm just, making a long list of, okay, where's going to be that place that I stay for 6 months,
So I
So I'm
like.
going to go back to Montenegro.
Have you been to Montenegro?
I'm going on the weekend.
Yeah,
So I went through there on the coach, and I was looking out the window like, okay, that's
yeah,
really nice.
yeah. It is. Yeah.
And it's outside of the EU as well, so it doesn't eat into your 90 days, which is important. So I'm going to spend some time back there, and I'm hoping it could be that just unexpected place that you wouldn't think to visit or stay. And hopefully it works out to be what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I've got some Croatian friends, and I did a podcast with Dejan, who is a Croatian guy who is living in Algarve. And we were talking about the whole Yugoslav wars, and it's quite a complicated area of the world. The Balkans. There's a lot of rivalry, a lot of ethnic rivalry amongst like the Slavs and the Croats and the Serbs, and all that kind of melting pot of tension that is just beneath the surface. You get there. And Montenegro has been independent for a long time, but I guess it's like an extension of Croatia. I mean, that might get me shot if I ended up in Montenegro and said that. Who knows? That's what you got to be careful of. Like, don't come out with a Serb flag by mistake when you're in Croatia, or likewise when you're in Serbia, because they're not the best of friends. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
what you're doing is really inspiring. I think it's great. I think you should keep doing it, because the other option is to be back in Liverpool. Who'd really want to do that? So keep yourself
Yep.
on the road. But what are you doing on the road? Because we talk about digital nomadism a lot, and it's kind of a lifestyle that I'm definitely interested in myself. Although not so much into the idea of moving around all the time, unless that's part of your, okay, I'm trying to find somewhere where I want to use as one of my bases. And, we talk about Nomad Capitalist. He's kind of took the whole digital nomad era to a new level, where he's kind of put it on steroids almost, where you're setting up companies in different places, you're working on the go, you're traveling around. But ultimately, what he says is that you get pretty tired of traveling around at some point, and you definitely want some bases that you can at least move between the same places. He calls it the trifecta system, which, you may stay in one place for 4 months on the tourist visa. You'll then stay in another place for 3 months on a tourist visa, and you just do that all year round. It's not like you're going to new places all the time. You're revisiting the former places. So your friends are still there, your relationships, any business opportunities that you've developed. Is that kind of like what you're doing at the moment? And is that part of your
Yeah.
plan of being on the road?
Yeah, 100%. Because I did spend 2 months in the one spot in Thailand, and everyone I would meet would be like, they go from place to place like every 5 days, but they're just traveling. They're not digital nomads. So yeah, I've got no problem with staying in a place for that longer period of time, and it's more suited, to be honest. The only reason I've been going from place to place is because I'm like, nah, my gut instinct says this isn't the place, this isn't the place. So I'm constantly moving on to the next place, and then hopefully, well, I already know where I'm going to be spending my winter in Vietnam. Then I'm just looking for that place in Europe that's the equivalent. So yeah, for me, I think 3 month stints in places is absolutely perfect. And as you say, building relationships and things with people, so you're not starting from the ground every time. So yeah, just trying to find those great places, and ideally, outside of Europe as well, because we only get 90 days there. So theoretically, you could do 90 days in Croatia, 90 days in Montenegro, and it's the same kind of thing, just next door to each other. So
That's a good
yeah,
idea.
just trying to
Yeah,
find the best places.
just crossing over the border from Montenegro, which is inside Schengen, isn't it? Over to,
Yeah.
sorry, Croatia is inside Schengen, and you just cross over to Montenegro. Yeah, that's a really good way of
Yeah.
doing it. So what's the visa situation like in Vietnam? Do they give you 90 days on a tourist visa as well, or didn't you pay any attention to that?
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, they give you 90 days without even asking. To be fair, they just stamp your passport and say you can leave in 3 months. But then, of course, if you want to be staying longer than that, you've got the option to go out, cross the border, and come back in, which a lot of people do, and then it refreshes for another 90 days. So you can keep doing that once every 90 days. So that's cool. That's doable. Or you can go down the route of actually applying for more of a longer term visa.
Mm.
Um, which, you know, might entertain at one day. Who
So
knows?
I'm going through the whole visa thing myself at the moment, and the Portuguese bureaucracy is a little bit antiquated and a little bit slow. We've been trying to get a residency visa for Portugal, which would allow me to, you know, travel around the EU, but it's gone on and on and on. And currently, I'm stuck inside Schengen, not allowed to leave until I get my Portuguese residency. But they
Wow.
had such a backlog. They had such a backlog in Portugal of people making residency applications. I think largely it was because of the whole period when they were doing the golden visa, and they had the NHR, which is the non-habitual residency visa, which meant taxes were really low for people who got that visa. So there was a huge influx during COVID of people wanting to get a permanent residency in Portugal, and they just didn't have the systems to be able to manage it, and something like 50,000 in a backlog. The old company that were managing it have been sacked. A new company have come in. They're just as bad. So we're kind of just sitting, waiting, watching the clock go around until we're able to get a residency permit. So I maybe should have followed my own advice and done the whole trifecta system, which is finding places to stay on the move with, which is what you're doing at the moment. And how long are you going to be in Croatia?
Well, only till the weekend. Then I'll be in Montenegro for, I'm thinking, maybe another 4 weeks potentially. See how I'm feeling from there. And then explore other options. You know.
No plan to go back to England?
I've got to, unfortunately. I've got some like weddings, events, family things that I need to go back for at some point. But it's literally going to be in and out. Get out of there ASAP. You know.
Yeah, I don't think they've seen.
Might even come and see you, Laurence.
Okay, well, just make sure you give me plenty of notice. So it's one thing. It's one thing saying you want to be a digital nomad, right? And it's one thing being able to liberate yourself from any location due to work, and it's kind of living a dream in a sense, because a lot of people, you know, are desperately miserable in the place that they live or the place that they work, but they just don't know how to escape it. They don't know how to break free, but they would give anything to do so. And you know, this
anything but what is required to do it. Yeah.
Well, maybe sometimes they just don't know the route, but it's like, you know, it's a liberating experience being able to take your work on the road. So how have you been able to develop your business? Tell us a little bit about your business so that you can just travel from place to place to place, time zone to time zone, and yet still be able to sustain yourself and your business to flourish and thrive as it is. Tell us a little bit about that. What is it that you're doing? I know you're doing Airbnb, but tell us a little bit specifics of people that may not know anything about you.
You likely don't. So it all started with you, actually, Laurence. You called me one day saying, "We've got a couple of Airbnbs in Liverpool if you want to come down and explore the option of working with me in some capacity." And so, you know, spent several years working with you with those, growing that to like 50 something listings or whatever it was in Liverpool. And with all of that experience, you know, I was then really interested in pursuing, you know, how do I create an income for myself online, which at the time felt like, I don't know, a little bit of a pipe dream, out of reach. Could I really do it? Because, you know, when you've never done something before, you've got no evidence to suggest that you actually can, you know. So, and especially when you're almost brainwashed into, you know, believing like probably one of the only ways of making income is you get a job, you know. So certainly because I'm not from a family who maybe are all entrepreneurial in some capacity, then, you know, it was a bit of a stretch. And so I was just really obsessed with how do I start something online? And I thought the easiest way to do that is take the knowledge or skills that I've developed in this Airbnb sector over these past few years, rather than start again from scratch with something. I've already got that knowledge. So the next question is, how can I monetize and make money from that knowledge? So the next skill that you need to learn to turn any kind of knowledge into money and into being able to earn money online is, you know, how to market yourself online. And so I just spent the next several years basically almost in kind of a burn the boat scenario where I was, went on to work for another Airbnb business, but since COVID and everything, that all sort of collapsed. And so then I spent like the next year and a half, 2 years of like going back down to minimal income. And it was like, I am not getting another job until I figure out how to make money online. I kind of burn the boat situation. And so I was just, reading every book around building a business online, and everybody's got their own opinions. And, whether it was on building a brand or how to find and craft your offer, all of these different things, running Facebook ads to get traffic to your offer and all of these things, spent a lot of time doing that. And essentially just trying to throw shit at the wall to see what sticks, so
I remember, talking to you during that period, and you really persisted through a slog of not getting anything back from all of the stuff you were throwing at the wall, right? Because you were waiting for something to stick, and nothing was quite sticking for you. But you kept going, and you kept going. You kept building your experience, and you kept yourself in the position to strike when the opportunity came, when something did stick, and then boom, all of those skills that you'd acquired over those years all came into play, didn't they? And you were able to then head off into, the specific area that you're focusing on now.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, if you were to look at it through a spiritual lens, you might say that, it's like there's a certain amount of effort and consistency required before you get the outcome you want.
Definitely.
It's like you don't get anything easy. All these people online who will try to teach you how to create and start online businesses is like how I got to 20 grand a month passive income in 90 days, and you can have the same, and I'm going to teach you how.
When are you going to make that video?
Unicorn.
When are you going to make that video?
It's already been edited. So, they're all trying to sell you on that pipe dream, and it's setting unrealistic expectations. It's like the whole X Factor thing, you know what I mean? That's what people are looking for, this one moment where it's all going to happen and it's going to be overnight. And nothing works like that. Just with consistency is the whole key to it all. And so, yeah, I was testing my market, the Airbnb market, with different things. Is it interior design that you're looking for? And then it spends several months wasting me time there, even though I thought that was what they needed.
Time. You were just adding to your skill set, weren't you? But yeah, that was a whole different route where you were going with that one compared to where you are now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So then I just put a few social media posts out about a completely different topic, but within Airbnb space, about pricing strategy. And it turned out like complete strangers, in one of the Facebook groups, are all putting their hands up saying, "Oh my God, can you help me with revenue management, with pricing strategy?" And there was that much demand from just one post that I put out. I decided, okay, that's where the real pain point of the market is, and then doubled down all of my focus on creating a service around that particular aspect of the market. And have then gone through all of the painful learning experiences that you have to go through when you're trying to develop and master any skill, which I certainly still haven't. And then started getting a big influx of customers coming into the business, taking on my first couple of team members, looking to then systemize and market and get it to the next level. So it's all happened. But it all happened relatively quickly. As we say, it was like absolutely nothing, no income for maybe a year and a half. And then you're thinking, everybody's telling you to give up. And what are you doing? Just go and get a job. To overnight, then it clicks. Your opportunity comes. And now I'm just going through all of the hurdles of all learning experiences of how to build a business online,
I think that's the really important takeaway, is that you have to keep yourself in the game as long as you can, so that when the opportunity comes, and it always comes, it may not come as quick as you want it to come, but it always comes, is that you're primed and ready to strike when it does come finally. Because then it's, because once you start becoming successful in that way, is that the next challenge is knowing what opportunities to say no to. because as you start to build more success, more opportunities come your way. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got to start saying no and not yes, you know? So, because I know with you, there's a few times I've tried to tempt you to do a few things with me, and it's like you've gone, no, I've got to focus on this. I've got enough on my plate, you know, dealing with
as much as I'd like to.
Yeah. So what is he actually doing then? So your clients are people with Airbnb properties, and you're pricing their Airbnbs so that they can, you know, get sold online better than other people's pricing. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, essentially in a nutshell, I won't bore people too much because a lot of people won't be interested. Though people do take pleasure in tell. Unfortunately, I've got myself into a profession that kind of caught me off guard. Where when people have said like, "Oh, what do you do?" and I'm like, "I'll do Airbnb pricing," they're like, "Oh, that's you," you know, like I'm part of the problem or something.
Yeah. Well, the thing is because I was
really
in that business myself. I've got a kind of still a vested interest in it, if you like, and. You know, it was a weird transition for me. I went from being a filmmaker to being a hotelier, you know, and had a lot of Airbnbs. It was, you know, it was quite challenging, quite enjoyable dealing with the challenge, but it wasn't particularly satisfying for me. You know, the money was quite good, and I enjoyed that part of it, but you know, it was more about, okay, well, I've done that one. Can I get another one? Can I get another one? Can I get another one? And you know, it's how quick can you build that portfolio and still manage to make sure everyone gets paid? And pricing was interesting because, you know, it was like the way what it became interesting was the way hotel pricing started to copy airlines. You know, and they were doing dynamic pricing where they let a certain number of seats on an airplane go for a certain price. Then there'd be another tranche of seats that they go for another price. And because I remember, you won't remember this, you're too young, but there was a period in buying airline flights, is that if you waited long enough, the price would go down, right? And it would go down and down and down and down. So all everyone was doing was waiting until the last minute. And as the prices were dropping, they were just getting them all cheap. But obviously the airlines figured that out, right? And they thought, there's no point us doing this because everyone's just waiting for us to drop the prices. So that's where they developed dynamic pricing. They would let a few tickets out at a certain price, let a few more tickets out at a certain price, and now they flipped it. They made it the longer you wait to book the airline ticket, the higher the price. So they just turned it on its head because they'd made all their money from selling it early, that they could say, well, we've got 10 tickets left, 500 quid each. What are you going to do about it? Because they'd already made the money. You know, and I thought that was interesting, was how that was applied to the hotel industry and then the Airbnb industry. And then from that, you had all these other cottage industries of pricing specialists, people who could figure that out so that people in the Airbnb game could maximize their profit. But it's quite a controversial topic at the moment, isn't it, Airbnb? You've got a lot of like government, councils, local authorities pushing back against the housing stock being used for these short-term stays. Are you dealing with any of that on the ground? The kind of the pushback against the whole Airbnb revolution?
I'm kind of just in the bubble of the back end behind the scenes with other hosts who are all grown and scaling the businesses, you know what I mean? So you see, it's only like the mainstream press articles that you see like the top rated comments on Facebook, on a Facebook post or something where they're bashing them. And everyone's chiming in. People who've got absolutely, you know, no knowledge about anything, by the way. You know, and one of the biggest links that they're putting to Airbnbs is like they try to attach it to the whole homelessness crisis. Like homelessness didn't exist before Airbnb, you know, and it's like, oh, the reason people are homeless is because all of these landlords have got 30 properties that they're renting out on the short-term rental market. It's like, the homeless people wouldn't have been in those properties irregardless because the system isn't wanting or willing to try and fix the homelessness problem. So it's got nothing to do with Airbnbs and probably everything to do with the big hotel chains being nice and pally with the government and sending some bad press in Airbnb's direction, you know?
Yeah, because I noticed that the Airbnb stock took quite a hit and they were, you know, having to spend more on legal fees to fight off the councils and the local authorities because, you know, they were pushing back. But yeah, that whole like digital way of acquiring rooms, food, taxis. It's all done from your phone. It was such a, a massive explosion at the time. Because I'd never used Ubers until last year. And then it was almost like a bit of a resistance.
Really?
And it was pretty amazing, to be fair. It was like, wow, that's a
Yeah.
really good solution to a problem. Really good solution to a problem. And sometimes you just have to. Sometimes with certain technology, you just have to tip your hat and go, you absolutely nail that one. And Airbnb did something similar, didn't it? It was they went up against these institutional hotel chains. These type of companies that have long echoes within our culture, like Hilton Hotel and stuff, and this upstart that just all they do really is make their money from holding your money, isn't it? Really, that's a because you don't with Hilton, you've got the contract between you and Hilton, but with Airbnb, I don't have the contract between the host. It's between me and Airbnb and you and Airbnb. They're like the ultimate middleman. The ultimate middleman is Airbnb because they take the money as well, don't they? It's not like you go to a hotel. There's maybe a travel agent in between who's setting up the you to go to that hotel, but you don't pay the travel agents. You pay the hotel direct. But Airbnb just absolutely dominated the market from making themselves the ultimate middleman when it comes to short stay accommodation. But so what's the future hold for you, Stephen, in what you're doing at the moment? What's next? What have you got lined up on the horizon with your business and your traveling and all that stuff?
Well, it's just gonna be Groundhog Day, really, more of the same. Which is just continually moving forward in terms of business. It's like it just brings a shed load of problems that you're obviously not equipped to deal with, because how could you be equipped to deal with something you've never done before? So constantly trying to get to that next income target with the business, and the problems of having 5 employees and all these different customers and all these different variables, like 2023's market being down or up versus 2024's market, which is trending a little bit worse, and what you do in that scenario, and building the brand, all of these things. The great thing about business, it's like the ultimate character building / self-development program that you could possibly do, because it's just constantly testing you. It's just like every single week in a 7-day period, you've got 2 great days where you're like, yes, I'm the shit. It's all working out. It's great. And then 2 days of absolute chaos and travesty, and something really bad's gone wrong that you overlooked or whatever. It's just more of the same, just riding that wave and keeping moving forward with it, whilst trying to be in the best possible climate that I can be at all times, and navigate through Europe and then back over to Asia.
Okay, so for people who are watching this and they're interested in this whole idea of working online or traveling the world, getting dengue fever when they go to Thailand, and if they wanted to become digital nomads themselves, what kind of advice can you give those people who are considering giving up the job and hightailing it out of there?
It's just the most important thing is just to be fully aware that it's going to take several years. Take into consideration it's going to take several years. Don't go into it thinking I'm going to be one of those people that it all clicks for within 3 months, 6 months, or whatever. Unless, having said that, if you're in a job role and you've been in that job role for 10 years and you're super specialized and skilled in that job role, it might be easier for you to transition into doing it. But even still, you're probably then going to have to find that but now I need to market myself, and my marketing skills are a beginner. My expertise in whatever my skill is might be up here, but my marketing skills are right down here. And it's going to take, X amount of time before I can learn how to market myself and make the money. So just be fully aware that it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of consistency, and it's going to test you. And consistency is the goal. Just like the birds wake up at 5 a.m. and sing every morning, they don't cry, bitch, and complain. You have to do exactly the same thing, and the universe rewards consistency. That's it.
Awesome, mate. Really, really good advice. Really good advice. Well, it's great chatting to you. Great seeing you, because I'm really happy that you survived that severe crisis, and it's good to see. Good to see you looking healthy and back on it. And I look forward to you coming over to Portugal, maybe. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for helping me out. One last thing: if people want to find you online, they want to get into Airbnb, they've got some Airbnb questions, or just generally want to have a chat to you, where can they find you online?
They can go to mostlybook.co if you're interested in anything Airbnb, or you can find me at Stephen Eagles on Facebook, Instagram, all of that good stuff.
Great. Okay, I'll put some links in the description as usual. Until the next one, thanks, Steve. I'll see you soon.